Yo, what is going on? Jacob Smedley here, talking about the Philadelphia 76ers and their offseason so far. I could not be more ecstatic for the way this team looks moving forward. May not be championship level, but they are going to be good this year. And so, looking at the team last year, 4-0. Lost to the Celtics in the first round. We all knew. We all knew that kind of going into the series. Down like 1-2-0. Yeah, this is over. Pack it in. Move on to next year. And so, you have Brett Brown calling the plays. You got guys. Just, again, the pieces didn't fit. You had Al Horford. I think people rip Elton Brand way too much. I think Sixers fans, you rip him because, of course, the signing didn't pan out, but the thought was there. And I think Elton Brand gets so much criticism sometimes for no reason, because you look and see, okay, he addressed the problem. I don't want to cross over here into other sports here in Philadelphia, but you look at other general managers and other leaders in basketball, in sports positions, and they're not addressing the team need. At least Elton made an effort to do it. What was the problem with the Sixers the year before? Joel Embiid, the plus-minus, and still continued, unfortunately, into the next year, but the plus-minus was atrocious with Embiid off the floor, and then you sign Horford to address that. Again, Elton Brand didn't think that he would be implemented in the starting lineup per se, but those minutes when Embiid was off the floor. So he just overpaid for it, and that's the bottom line. And then you grab Richardson, the sign and trade. There's so much criticism. Butler didn't want to be there. We all know that. And then you sign Tobias to the max kind of large contract, kind of overcompensating. That's kind of the problem I have. The big money there. And again, going back, that's what happens to these other organizations in Philadelphia, where it's, okay, we gave up a lot for this guy, and I hope this doesn't happen with JT Realmuto with the Phillies. You give up all this stuff for this one guy, and then when his contract is up, you feel the obligation, okay, so he's a good all-star kind of player, and not necessarily the one that puts him over the top, but this good all-star player that you give a lot up for, and you feel obligated to give him more money than he deserves, and then it kind of doesn't work out in the long run. Tobias Harris is good. He's not the top 2 player on the team, thank goodness, but he definitely was overpaid. All right, looking at that, there was still a lot of high expectations for the team going into the season. They underperformed. So far in the offseason, absolutely fantastic moves by the front office. The front office, Joshua Harris and the ownership group, bad. Bad to put it lightly. Up until this offseason, I think too handsy, too involved with this team. And you can't have an ownership that is that involved with the team. And what did they do? They collaborate. They were like, this is a problem. This is a problem. We need to fix it. We have these 2 marketable players, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid. Now they have struggled in the playoffs. They've been great in the regular season. They have booming skill sets and amazing market value. They are selling out. They were selling out the stadiums, of course, before COVID at the Wells Fargo Center, because you have these 2 marketable stars. You have to win with these 2 marketable stars. It doesn't get... they have these 2 guys. They bring in Daryl Morey to assist Elton Brand, who's still a young general manager. Great move. You bring in Doc Rivers, who's an experienced coach, a championship-winning coach. Who, yes, he had trouble last year. But you look at the resume that he has, and he provides so much more than Brett Brown for this team. I'm saying, he is an experienced coach that they needed. Brett Brown, I guess now he's an experienced coach, But he was a young coach when they brought him on. He was a young coach when they brought him on. And yeah, he dealt with a young roster for the first part of his tenure, and still kind of to this point, when you have guys like Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, you needed that coach that has dealt with young players and veterans at the same time and can take them to a certain level. Now, Doc has struggled in the playoffs, and of course, Paul George's recent comments have shown that he's maybe not this exactly same guy that took the Celtics, and that Celtics team had a lot of talent with Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Rajon Rondo, to name a few. But he is key. I think he is going to get the most out of those two guys. And then what Daryl Morey has done has been absolutely superb, has got the fan base back into it. I mean, the fan base, including myself, out of it, checked out. 4-0 sweep to the Celtics was like, oh my goodness. How is this team going to rebound? And they started off the best way they could have. Doc Rivers falling into their lap, fired by the Clippers. Daryl Morey let go by the Rockets. It almost seems like he's going to retire. Comes back, comes to the Sixers. Absolutely amazing. You have all these assistant coaches. Dave Yeager, head coach before. Sam Cassell from the Clippers as well. Peter Dinwiddie in the front office. They got a lot of guys in there as well, along with Morey. Fantastic. And then with Moore at the helm. How? I mean, that's my question. How? Flipping Al Horford to the Thunder for Danny Green and Terrence Ferguson? Are you crazy? I mean, that is an outstanding move. Unloading Horford's contract. I mean, there was a lot of backlash that I just didn't understand at first. I mean, you are unloading a contract that is going to hinder the franchise for 3+ years down the road. Giving it to OKC, a team that has so much draft capital. Like, they can take on that contract, and I think you might see a bit of a regression out of that team. But not focusing on them. Look at the Sixers, Danny Green. A lot of people give him crap, Danny Bricks and all that. He had a regression year. But he is going to be much more beneficial on this team, I mean, than Horford was last year. By a large margin. I mean, Horford, they were doing pick and pops. Yeah, he could shoot, but it was just horrendous. Horrendous, his role. His role was supposed to be a backup to Embiid, and he just didn't do that. So, I mean, that was an outstanding move. I thought that it was going to be extremely rough. Of course, a lot of people more value it. But that horrendous contract was not going to net you a lot of value anyways. So you get Danny Green, you get Terrence Ferguson, and then on draft night, in addition to a fantastic draft, I'll get to Tyrese Maxey and what I've seen out of him. I'll get to Isaiah Joe, Paul Reed. That was a fantastic draft. Flipping Josh Richardson for Seth Curry. Look at Curry, man. So inspirational. Flight Reacts the shout-out. I mean, Seth Curry, 45% three-point shooter. Daryl Morey is addressing an issue on the team. What a miracle. I mean, I just think about it. When was the last time a Philadelphia sports executive addressed an issue with the team? I'm talking to you, John Middleton. I'm talking to you, Howie Roseman. I'm talking to you. Well, I mean, the Flyers can't complain about what's going on in there, out there, but like this is just, it was absolutely refreshing. Yeah, me and some of my friends, Christmas came early. Seth Curry, Ben Simmons, the most assists on three-pointers last year, and then you give him Seth Curry and Danny Green. I know he had a down year, but he still will shoot at a 30+% clip from the three. That's exactly what you would take. And then go into the draft. I mean, Josh Richardson, he just didn't fit. I mean, he was a good player. He was a good player, don't get me wrong. He was better than whatever Al Horford was. But he was not a secondary ball handler for the team. and he wasn't the shoot. I felt like he was forced to shoot. And I think it's a great environment in Dallas. I think it's a win-win for both teams. When you look at Josh Richardson, his skill set pairing next to Luka Doncic, Adoree Finney-Smith, Kristaps Porzingis, and those guys, great addition for them. They needed perimeter defense. He gives you that. Wasn't exactly the best. Wasn't Ben Simmons caliber by any means, but he was good. Dog. Made some shots for him, but he's not that catch and shoot guy. He's not that catch and shoot from three. He's not that kind of dribbler that he was for the 76ers, where he was a secondary ball handler. That's not him. That's not him. He's more like a Tobias Harris kind of skill set, and Doc Rivers kind of mentioned that as well. He's a catch, quick action. Limited dribbles, I think, for Josh Richardson are where he succeeds, and that's where I think he's going to succeed with Dallas. But then you look at Seth Curry, a guy that can handle the ball, a guy that can shoot efficiently from three, and he could finish inside. We saw him having I don't want to say renaissance year, but he had a great year with the Mavericks last year. With the Clippers. He had that great game against the Clippers in the bubble, averaging 12 points. And I'll get in kind of to the rotations a bit later. But moving on to that very same night, talking about the draft, Tyrese Maxey. Boy, was there was some, looking at Twitter, a lot of feedback, kind of negative at first. Of course, this came prior to the trade for Seth Curry, so it's like, maybe that the Isaiah Joe, you should get a shooter. But Tyrese Maxey was a steal. I couldn't be more excited. This guy's practicing with Ben Simmons. This guy's saying Ben Simmons, LeBron James. I mean, this guy. I mean, I know you can't connect that to success in any way. I mean, look at Jason Tatum. Look at all the connections he had before being drafted to the Celtics. I'm just saying. I mean, when he has those connections, Rajon Rondo, the next Rajon Rondo in Philly, maybe with a jump shot, and you look at the numbers, 29% from three, kind of discouraging, but hey, 40% against top 25 teams. The kid can shoot. The kid can create his own shot, work off the screen, and he played excellent defense. I know. Probably will have to transition that to the next game, but I mean, that is very encouraging. Love the pick. Of course, he'll have to grow. He'll have to, of course, being on probably a more winning team. We've seen that with some rookies in the past, like last year with Matisse Thybulle, how his minutes were orchestrated in, but I think he can definitely have a big role on this team. Isaiah Joe, love the pick. Shooting, can never have too few shooters, especially on this team that is fronted by Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, two guys that their primary scoring is in the paint. Paul Reed, great young player. I think that they could use him again. I think that, kind of like how we've seen in the NFL, this year for the NBA, or the 2020-2021 season, is going to be built around the depth that teams have. And when you have a team that is deep, I think you're going to see major success. And teams that aren't as deep aren't going to be as successful. It's not gonna say they're going to have a losing record, like a team that's not too deep, but they might be more special, especially in this non-bubble format that the NBA is trying to undertake here. After you go from a bubble format in the summer, there's going to be more cases of COVID-19 in for the teams. So you look at it as, okay, which teams built the bench up? And I think the 76ers did a great job at doing that, addressing that in the offseason. And again, looking at what these moves so far, looking how the roster shapes up, and the starting rotation, the starting five right now, again, it's about a week and a day until the first preseason game against the Boston Celtics. But looking at it here, I mean, a lot of people, okay, Seth Curry into the starting lineup. I mean, I like it. I mean, I don't want to discourage that. I enjoy that. Simmons, Curry, Green, Tobias, and Joel Embiid. I'm interested in what Doc wants to do because I personally think, a lineup with Thibault in there. Now, I know people are going to say, oh, Jacob, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You need shooting in the lineup for the team. I mean, I don't want to say Thibault was a terrible shooter. He could shoot the rock. I mean, we saw that a bit in the playoffs. We saw that a bit in the bubble. And last year, his shooting improved. Of course, he's not Seth Curry. He's not even a Tobias Harris level. I mean, that's not his primary game. Of course, his defense is primary, but that's what he's gonna give you offensively: a catch and shoot three, and on the fast break he'll drive the rock, he'll catch the lob. But I mean, I just want to say, okay, looking at it, because I'm thinking about Shake Milton here. I'm thinking about Shake Milton. I'm thinking about Tyrese Maxey. If you put Thibault in the starting lineup, you have Curry or even Green coming off the bench. Probably not Green. Excuse me. Green, I think, is a lock into the starting lineup. Yeah, I mean, maybe something like that. But I think he's more of a lock than Curry is. But I can see, I think it's going to be Simmons, Curry, Green, Harris, Embiid. But I want to see how Shake Milton matches into this. Because Shake Milton, I believe, is that sixth man, because you have him and Thibault. And, of course, you got Dwight Howard, which he was a great signing. He was a very underrated signing. I mean, 1 year vet min for Dwight Howard, who averaged 7 and 7 last year, come off the bench. I mean, fraction. 6 points, 4 rebounds off the bench. Just a plus minus. But looking at the lineup, it's going to be very intriguing who Doc starts with first. I mean, because Shake Milton, I mean, I don't want to say he's not going to be Lou Williams. I mean, Lou Williams is on another level, but the Philadelphia 76ers have not had a good bench player in years. You have to go back to Lou Williams and Evan Turner played for the Sixers, and Drew Holiday and Spencer Hawes. Those days to find the last time when this team had a guy consistently, Iguodala, the last time a guy consistently came off the bench and could give you 10 plus. All right, and I know people have fantasized Furkan Korkmaz and what he can provide for the team, but look, I mean, you cannot rely on Furkan Korkmaz to occasionally drop 20 points and shooting 4 for 5 from 3 or whatever it is. You can't rely on that, especially when you get further into the season and once you get into the playoffs. And you have to have a consistent bench scorer. And I want to think that Shake Milton, or Seth Curry, or whichever guard is leading the second unit. I think maybe Seth Curry is going to start in the starting lineup. Again, Seth Curry has not started for any other team before in his career, so it's going to be interesting how Doc manages those minutes. If it's like, again, a Lou Williams, Landry Shamet kind of situation. Just looking back for when Doc was on the Clippers, when Doc was fronting the Clippers, and how he ran that rotation, and how it translates to the Sixers. So, I mean, you look at Curry, he could be a 20 to 25 minute guy, and then you could have Shake Milton, that 15 to 20 minute guy off the bench, as a 6-man Lou Williams kind of prototype, and be a guy that can give you 10 to 15, can run the second unit, can run with the starters as well, as we saw in the playoffs this past year. Yeah, he had some rough games. Celtics, very good defensive team, I might add as well. But I think Doc will find a way to utilize his talent, and I am excited for what Shake Milton can bring. Raw skills, but he has the tools. We saw the tools last year. I mean, I know he had that great stretch of games, one of which being against the Clippers. He has the tools. Of course, it's been a bit rough. And he's also been on the floor with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. That's why I think he might be best suited off the bench. But I think that's a guy to look out for to really make it. I just, this bench, I think this team is the deepest it's been in years. I mean, you may not look at the firepower may not be the same as the past 2 years when you're talking about even last year and the year before. When the year before they had Butler, and then last year they had Horford and they had Richardson. And you look at that starting five, and oh yeah, it's the greatest. It's the greatest in the Eastern Conference. But this team, it may not be as great, but it makes sense, and they're deeper. They're deeper, and I think their bench, again, best it's been in years. I mean, when you think, okay, Thibault, he'll be a first guy off the bench, great defensive option, and he can give you. I think he will start to improve. Again, had the rookie season, sophomore maybe slump, but I still see him, a guy that can, give you a few steals a night. He led rookies in steals last year. Can give you threes. And then you look at Shake Milton, you could say the seventh man, guy give you 10 to 15 points. And can provide that spark off the bench. Can work the pick and roll with Embiid. Work the pick and roll with Howard. Work the pick and roll with Simmons, even if they want to still incorporate that part of his game that Brett Brown kind of used last year. I think they might try and work that out and focus Ben Simmons as being a guard more than a 4 kind of player. Then you have Howard coming off the bench, probably 10, 15 minutes, just when Joel Embiid needs a breather. Of course, in the regular season, when Embiid sits, he'll be starting. And then you got to look at Tony Bradley being that backup who, he's the end of the bench guy now, but again, during the regular season, he'll weave his way in there to get some minutes there as the 8th or 9th man when those games that Howard's thrown in there when Embiid needs either a break in that kind of, planned rest, or if, there's another one of those 7-8 game stretches where Embiid needs to sit because he's hurt, or that's another thing you take into account. The injuries, they need to stop, and the cohesiveness has to be there. They have to be all on the court through the regular season to develop that chemistry. But I'm just so optimistic, so encouraged with the way this team is going to be. Of course, you got that whole question, Ben Simmons shooting. Doc Rivers already stating the pick and roll will be a big factor, and will work with incorporating a bunch of different guys. But yeah, this team is very exciting. It's not going to be a team that might be at the top of the conference, might not even be top 3, but there's a lot of promise. This team is structured correctly, and that is just phenomenal to hear. They have maybe not the strongest starting lineup, as I mentioned, but they have guys that can come in off the bench. They can fill spots. They're deeper at positions that they weren't last year. Well, yeah, you look at the 4 position. I mean, they're kind of a bit weak, but you've got 3 centers. You've got like a bunch of kind of small forward type players. You got a bunch of guys you can mix in off the bench. So I think you look at this team, and I'm just thinking 40, 45 wins, maybe 50. But this team's going to be much more exciting to watch. And, maybe Daryl Morey around the trade deadline can pull some strings, depending on how the team's looking. But, I just couldn't be more excited for this team and how they are set, how they are put together as an organization, how they are set right now. Couldn't be more excited. Preseason starting on the 15th, and then the regular season starting the 23rd against Russell Westbrook and the Wizards. I cannot wait. Thank you all for listening